What if the most effective survival tools in our lineage weren't invented in silicon labs, but encoded into plants that evolved over millions of years to synthesize perfect chemical defenses? Many believe that ancient knowledge about nature is just superstition, but modern archaeology and phytochemistry are revealing a different reality. Our ancestors treated certain plants not as food, but as state technology. Empires were built and global trade routes were mapped out, not for gold, but for the possession of specific molecules. In this video, we're decoding 10 of these natural technologies that shaped human civilization. One of them was so valuable that emperors paid the price of entire cities just to wear it. Another one caused the world's first recorded workers' strike because supplies ran out. And one has been the secret weapon of Mediterranean populations for over 4,000 years. And the most mind-blowing part, modern science is finally catching up to what they knew thousands of years ago. So stick around, because understanding these plants isn't just history, it's understanding how to work with your own biology. Here's the thing about ancient people. They were observers. They didn't have chemistry labs, but they had something better. Thousands of years to experiment, watch what worked, and pass it down. What modern science calls active compounds and molecular interactions, they simply called medicine that works. Let's now decode what they discovered. 1. Aloe vera. Alexander the Great was one of history's most successful military commanders. In 333 BC, his teacher Aristotle gave him an unusual advice: conquer an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean called Socotra. That island wasn't full of gold or military resources, it was almost entirely covered in one plant, aloe vera. So Alexander did it. His generals thought he was crazy, but here's why he wasn't. For soldiers on long campaigns across Asia, the biggest killer wasn't enemies, it was infections. A small cut could get infected, that infection could spread, and within weeks you had soldiers who couldn't fight anymore. The Egyptians had already figured this out 1,700 years before Alexander. They called aloe the plant of immortality and used it in their hospitals and embalming practices. Inside aloe gel is a substance called axamanin. What this does is basically call the alarm bells in your immune system. Specifically, it signals your body to produce more collagen. That's the protein your skin uses to heal itself. Think of it like this. It doesn't directly fix the wound. Instead, it tells your body to work faster on fixing the wound itself. It's accelerating your natural healing process. Modern studies have confirmed that soldiers using aloe-treated bandages returned to active duty weeks earlier than those treated with just water or basic oils. Number 2. Frankincense. Between 1000 BC and around 200 AD, there was a trade route called the incense route. It stretched from the deserts of Yemen and Oman all the way across to Rome and the Mediterranean ports. Frankincense, a resin from the boswellia tree, traveled this entire route, and it was expensive. We're talking about worth more than gold per pound. Roman emperors kept it locked away like treasure. Temples burned it as the most sacred offering. Kings gave it as gifts more precious than weapons. Why would an entire empire obsess over tree resin? Imagine being a Roman soldier who just had surgery, maybe an arrow wound, maybe a broken bone that needed setting. There were no painkillers, no antibiotics, no anesthesia. They had frankincense. Frankincense contains compounds called boswellic acids. This is the reason people traveled thousands of miles for tree resin. Here's what these acids do. They block the enzyme that triggers inflammation in your body. When you have inflammation, that's where the pain comes from. Your body is swollen, irritated, and sending pain signals everywhere. Boswellic acids essentially tell that inflammation to stop activating. It's not like modern painkillers that just block pain signals in your brain. It's actually stopping the root cause, the inflammation itself. Scientists didn't understand how frankincense worked until the 1970s, but the Romans had been using it for over 2,000 years. Today, it's one of the most researched natural compounds for joint pain and chronic inflammation. In ancient Rome, temples would burn so much frankincense that the smoke was visible from miles away. The priests knew it had powerful effects. They just didn't know it was literally inhaling healing compounds into everyone's lungs. Number 3. Turmeric. About 5,000 years ago, in the Indus Valley, modern-day India and Pakistan, archaeologists found turmeric residue in ancient pottery. But here's what's fascinating. It wasn't just turmeric by itself. The ancient texts, especially in the Vedic traditions, show that they always used turmeric with something else, usually with black pepper or with ghee, clarified butter. This wasn't accidental, it was deliberate. They had figured out something we didn't fully understand until modern chemistry explained it. Their genius discovery. Turmeric contains a powerful compound called curcumin. This is the substance that does most of the work inside your body. But here's the problem. Your body is actually terrible at absorbing curcumin on its own. If you just eat turmeric alone, most of it passes through your system without being absorbed. The ancient Ayurvedic doctors discovered that when you add black pepper to turmeric, something magical happens. Black pepper contains piperine, which tells your digestive system to actually absorb the curcumin. Modern science measured this. Adding black pepper increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. Not 20%, not 200%, 2,000%. What was an effective remedy became 20 times more effective just by adding another ingredient. What curcumin actually does. Our ancestors called it a blood purifier and destroyer of inflammation. Modern science calls it a pleiotropic molecule, which just means it affects hundreds of different systems in your body simultaneously. It protects your DNA from damage. It reduces inflammation. It affects how your cells communicate. It's one of the most studied compounds in modern medicine today. Most turmeric supplements sold today, they often come without black pepper or with ineffective amounts. Our ancestors were smarter about this 5,000 years ago. Rosemary. In classical Greece around 500 BC, right before major exams or intellectual competitions, students would braid sprigs of rosemary into their hair. It became such a common practice that it's referenced in multiple historical texts. Teachers endorsed it, students believed in it, but was it real or was it just tradition and placebo? When scientists analyzed rosemary, they found it releases a volatile compound called 1,8-cineo, just a fancy name for a naturally occurring chemical. When you inhale it or wear it in your hair near your nose, this chemical crosses the blood-brain barrier. That's the protective layer around your brain. Once inside your brain, it does something very specific. It blocks the breakdown of acetylcholine. Why does that matter? Acetylcholine is your brain's memory and focus chemical. Without it, you can't form memories properly. You can't concentrate. Your brain basically can't do intellectual work. What rosemary does is slow down the breakdown of this chemical so it stays in your system longer. More acetylcholine in your system equals better memory, better focus, better recall. Greek philosophers weren't following superstition. They were optimizing their brain chemistry before high-stakes intellectual challenges. Modern studies have confirmed that inhaling rosemary oil improves memory performance and processing speed. Your ancestors were doing nootropic hacking, using natural chemistry to enhance cognitive performance thousands of years before we had a word for it. Garlic. In Egypt, around 2600 BC, workers were building the Great Pyramids of Giza. This was the largest construction project in the ancient world. Thousands of workers, extreme physical labor, no modern sanitation, dense living quarters. One day, the supply of garlic ran out. The workers refused to work. This is considered the first recorded strike in human history, and it wasn't about wages or hours or dangerous conditions, it was about garlic. The overseers clearly understood why. Without garlic, workers got sick, and when workers got sick in a massive labor camp, the sickness spread fast. Why was garlic that important? Garlic contains a compound called allicin, but here's the thing, fresh garlic doesn't actually contain allicin when it's whole. Allicin is created only when garlic is cut, crushed, or chewed. It's literally the plant's defense mechanism against being eaten. It creates this chemical as a weapon against predators. In human bodies, allicin acts as a broad-spectrum antimicrobial. That means it fights bacteria, viruses, and fungal infections, multiple types of pathogens at once. For a labor camp with poor sanitation and thousands of people living in close quarters, this was literally a survival tool. Garlic also stimulates something called nitric oxide production in your body. Nitric oxide helps regulate blood pressure and blood flow. Better blood flow means better healing, better immune function, better everything. For the ancient world, garlic was the closest thing to an antibiotic that existed. Centuries before modern medicine, garlic allowed early civilizations to maintain massive populations without widespread epidemics. Number 6. Black seed, Nigella sativa. King Tutankhamun died in 1323 BC. When archaeologists opened his tomb thousands of years later, they found many things: gold, jewels, weapons, food for the afterlife. They also found a small vial of black seed oil. The ancient Egyptians believed you needed certain things in the afterlife. They buried the most important possessions with their pharaohs. A vial of black seed oil was important enough to send to the next life. In Arabic cultures, black seed is called habatul baraka, the seed of blessing. For centuries, it's been used to increase energy, speed up recovery from illness, and strengthen the body's overall resilience. Why does it actually work? Black seed contains a compound called thymoquinone. Unlike stimulants, which just force your body to work harder, thymoquinone is what's called an immunomodulator. It means that it helps your immune system find balance. Your immune system has a difficult job. It needs to fight external threats, bacteria, viruses, etc., without attacking your own body. In autoimmune diseases, the immune system gets confused and starts attacking your own tissues. Thymoquinone helps regulate this balance, keeping the immune system aggressive against invaders, but protective of your own body. In our modern world, most people are living under constant stress. Stress dysregulates your immune system. Black seed was the ancient tool for immune stability during times of systemic stress. Number 7. Saffron. Frescoes from 1600 BC on the island of Crete show workers harvesting saffron. The Minoan civilization had already mastered it. But it was in ancient Persia, under rulers like Cyrus the Great, where saffron became an empire-level obsession. The Persians would weave saffron into gold threads for royal robes. They'd use it in royal banquets. They'd trade for it across continents. The price? Imagine paying the equivalent of a year's city budget for a few pounds of flour. Yet they did it, again and again. Empires don't spend that kind of resource on something that doesn't work. What made it worth that price? Saffron contains compounds called saffronol and crocin. These compounds directly affect serotonin levels in your brain. Serotonin is your brain's mood and stability chemical. It affects how happy you feel, your energy levels, your ability to handle stress, and your mental clarity. The University of Tehran conducted studies comparing saffron extract to standard antidepressants used for mild to moderate mood imbalances. The results? Saffron was as effective as the pharmaceutical drugs. Why was this a genius? Persian emperors weren't using saffron just because it tasted good or looked luxurious. They were using it to maintain emotional stability and mental clarity under the extreme pressure of ruling empires. A Persian emperor dealing with wars, political intrigue, military decisions, and the weight of the empire needed to stay psychologically stable. Saffron was their biological tool for that. This is also why saffron has historically been given to guests of honor in special ceremonies and in diplomatic meals. It wasn't just tradition, it was neurochemistry. By serving saffron to important guests or allies, emperors were literally putting them in a better psychological state for negotiations and agreements. 8. Pomegranate. Pomegranates were domesticated somewhere around 4000 BC in the region spanning from Iran to the Himalayas. But here's what's fascinating. Archaeologists have found dried pomegranates carefully placed inside Egyptian tombs. Seeds have been discovered in shipwrecked merchant vessels from the Canaanite period around 1400 BC. That means traders were intentionally carrying pomegranates across oceans. They were valuable enough to be cargo on merchant ships. Ancient texts called it the fruit of longevity, not just a fruit that's nice to eat, but specifically a fruit that extends life. Pomegranates contain something called punicolagen. It's a massive polyphenol, just a fancy name for a complex plant compound. Here's where it gets interesting. When you eat pomegranate, your gut bacteria don't just digest it and throw it away. They break it down into something called urolithins. What urolithins do: your cells have tiny power plants inside them called mitochondria. These are what generate your energy. But over time, these mitochondria get damaged and stop working efficiently. That damaged material piles up. Urolithins perform what scientists call mitochondrial cleanup. They identify broken mitochondria and remove them before they can cause problems. Think of it like replacing old broken equipment in a factory before it starts poisoning the whole operation. One of the biggest benefits: urolithins prevent something called oxidation of cholesterol in your arteries. When cholesterol oxidizes, gets damaged, it becomes sticky. It sticks to your artery walls. It hardens. It narrows your blood vessels. This is literally how heart disease develops. Pomegranate prevents that process. It's no coincidence that regions in the world of the longest living populations, places like the Mediterranean and the Middle East, all have pomegranate at the center of their traditional diets. Ancient people didn't know about mitochondria or oxidation or urolithins, but they observed something simple. People who ate pomegranate regularly lived longer, their hearts stayed healthier, so they made sure it was always part of the diet. 9. Ashwagandha. One of the oldest medical texts ever written is called the Charaka Samhita. It was compiled around 600 BC in India and forms the foundation of Ayurvedic medicine. This text specifically discusses ashwagandha as a crucial medicine. Its Sanskrit name literally means smell of a horse, referring to the ancient belief that it would give you the vitality and strength of a stallion. It's a poetic way of saying, this plant makes you strong. Here is the stress problem they solved. Imagine living in an ancient civilization. You could be invaded at any time. Food could run out. Disease could sweep through your settlement. There's constant conflict, constant uncertainty. Your body is in a permanent state of high alert. In modern terms, we'd call this chronic stress. In the ancient world, it was just life. But your body wasn't designed to stay in constant stress mode. Under extreme, prolonged stress, your system begins to collapse. You get sick more easily. Your mental clarity drops. You lose strength. The biology of ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is called an adaptogen. That's not a marketing term. It's a specific biological classification. An adaptogen is a substance that helps your body adapt to stress by bringing your system back to balance. The key compounds are called withanolides. Here's what they do. They act like a thermostat for your endocrine system. Your endocrine system is what controls your hormones, including cortisol, the stress hormone. When cortisol spikes dangerously, which happens in conflict, hunger, or dangerous situations, ashwagandha signals your body to turn it back down. It's like having an internal regulator that prevents you from burning out. Why did ancient warriors use it? Warriors in high-risk, hostile environments needed this biological resilience. Without ashwagandha, you'd break mentally and physically under sustained stress. With it, your system stays regulated, you stay sharp, you stay strong. The Vedic texts describe it as essential for warriors, scholars, and anyone living under pressure. Modern science has confirmed that ashwagandha reduces cortisol levels, improves stress resilience, and prevents the systemic collapse that comes from chronic stress. Our ancestors developed a stress management technology thousands of years before modern psychology even had a name for it. 10. Extra virgin olive oil. Homer, the ancient Greek poet, called olive oil liquid gold in the 8th century BC, but the actual history goes back much further. Olive trees were domesticated in the Levant region, modern-day Syria, Lebanon, Israel, around 6000 BC. In Minoan Crete, the ancient civilization that built incredible palaces and cities, olive oil wasn't just food, it was the center of the entire economy. It was used for light and oil lamps. It was used for hygiene, they rubbed it on their bodies. It was used for nutrition, it was traded as currency. An entire civilization was built on olive oil. The answer is a compound called oleocanthal. What oleocanthal does? This antioxidant has a molecular structure that mimics the action of powerful anti-inflammatory agents. Remember how we talked about inflammation earlier? Inflammation is the root cause of most chronic diseases: heart disease, cognitive decline, aging. Oleocanthal attacks inflammation at the molecular level, but olive oil does something else too. It provides monounsaturated fats. These fats are essential for building and maintaining cell membranes, the protective layer around every cell in your body. Healthy cell membranes mean your cells can protect themselves from oxidative damage. Basically, they age slower, communicate properly with other cells, transport nutrients, and remove waste efficiently. High-quality olive oil creates an environment where human cells can function with minimal oxidative damage, meaning they stay healthy and functional for decades longer. Here's something intriguing about this. Olive trees themselves can live for thousands of years. Some olive trees in the Mediterranean are over 2,000 years old. They survive all that time by maintaining their cellular integrity. They're constantly protecting themselves from oxidation and damage. When ancient Mediterranean people consumed olive oil, they were essentially using the same preservation system that allows olive trees to withstand centuries. They were using the tree's own longevity technology to extend their own. This is a core reason why people in Mediterranean regions historically live longer than almost any other population on Earth. Olive oil isn't just food, it's a biological technology for preserving cellular function across decades. Here's a crucial detail. Not all olive oil is created equal. The Minoans and ancient Mediterranean peoples used extra virgin olive oil, the least processed version that retains the highest concentration of these protective compounds. They were doing it because they observed that the better quality, fresher oil had stronger effects. So let's take a step back and look at the full picture of what we've uncovered. Alexander the Great conquered islands for tree resin to heal soldiers. Roman emperors paid more for frankincense than for gold. Egyptian workers refused to build pyramids without garlic. Persian emperors wove saffron into their royal clothes to stay mentally sharp. Greek students braided herbs into their hair to pass exams. Mediterranean civilizations built entire economies around olive oil because they understood it extended life. Warriors in ancient India used ashwagandha to stay psychologically resilient under impossible stress. Egyptians buried pomegranate seeds with their pharaohs for the journey to the afterlife. These were people who understood, at a practical level, how to work with their own biology. They didn't understand molecular chemistry. They didn't have university research labs. They didn't have MRI machines or blood tests. But they had something more valuable: thousands of years of observation, trial and error, and the willingness to listen to what their bodies were telling them. And every single one of these plants, every single one, modern science has now validated and explained at the molecular level. Modern science is finally catching up to what they knew all along. Here's my question for you. Which of these resources are you already using? And which of these mechanisms surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely read them, and I'm curious what resonates with you. If you're the kind of person who loves this approach, decoding the real science behind ancient practices, understanding why our ancestors valued what they valued, rather than just repeating myths or getting sold marketing nonsense, hit subscribe. And share this video with anyone in your life who's curious about history, about biology, about how our ancestors understood their own health. Share it with people who wonder why certain cultures have lived longer and healthier than others. Because understanding history isn't just about the past, it's about understanding ourselves better today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.